first off, I want to thank the grace of heaven and the virtues of the masters, the mercy of the grand predecessors, transmitting masters, and everyone here today for this opportunity to talk about those basic concepts in Tao cultivation. Yeah, we talk a lot about cultivation in the Tao. Actually, yeah, besides, learning, knowledge, cultivation is, you can say it's the practice. So it's a big part of what we do. Without cultivation, we cannot succeed, just like we've talked about in previous classes with like the 4 courses of cultivation, for example, and also the 5 conditions or requirements for returning to heaven, right? It's all talking about cultivation. So that's how important it is. So it's not just, I listen and learn a little bit, but, we have to kind of put into practice, apply it to our lives. Now, okay, let's see. So, of course, the ultimate goal of this cultivation or practice is to, transcend life and death, and rebirth, and to become enlightened. Now, maybe we can become enlightened before we transcend, but most of us probably will still take a lot longer than this one lifetime to be truly enlightened like the Buddha. And then, ultimately to attain nirvana or Buddhahood. Okay. So that's really what, we must practice. We must cultivate in order to get there. So that's the goal. But, this cultivation is kind of like the journey, to get there, right? We can't just jump from where we are to becoming a Buddha without cultivation. That's impossible. Okay. We may become enlightened, but we still need to cultivate, to do the practice, to actually get there, to achieve that result. Okay, so this is different, kind of different than just strict book learning, that kind of stuff. All right. Okay. Now, all right. So various aspects. Yeah, I guess you can say aspects or, cultivation is very broad, okay? It covers a lot of things. And so as we've talked about in previous classes, so the refinement of the character is one of them. So this is one of the important parts, right? So, our character, who we are, right? Well, as humans anyways, we need to kind of, what will we say? Well, in Chinese, we say, to yuanman, to basically, I kind of translate it as to transform the unsatisfactory into the satisfactory, or really for us to become well-rounded. Okay. So, life is, imperfect. Okay, so we are imperfect. We are not perfect, right? And everything that, the world around us, you can say it's not perfect. Things aren't perfect. Situations aren't ideal. Okay, maybe that's a better word. And so we have to deal with that. And depending on how we deal with it, that's really the key. This is what the cultivation is all about, is how we deal with it, making sure that when we do face situations or other people, how do we deal with them? Okay, in the right, I'll say the right way. Okay, the proper way, or whatever is appropriate. Okay, so there may not be one specific say right answer. Say, you must be face or deal with it in this specific way. All right. But to just try to make things satisfactory. However, and so that's a relative answer. Okay. So it's all relative. All right, becoming well-rounded. I mean, because we are not perfect, right? We have our, we have our temperaments. We have various habits, idiosyncrasies, things like that, which make us, you can say, we're not in every situation, or when we're dealing with all sorts of people, we're not always, for example, very kind or loving or caring when we treat others. It's all conditional, right? Depends. And so these are the things that make us not very well-rounded. So it's like a rough stone, like a rock, okay, that has very rough edges. And what we need to do is polish this rock or stone until it's very smooth and rounded. Okay, so and that would become the ideal. Now, of course, this smooth and rounded rock, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to become like a perfect sphere, right? As long as it's smooth all around. Okay, it may not be shaped exactly like a sphere, perfect sphere, but as long as it's smooth, then when you're, so we use the analogy of rocks or stones that are put together. Obviously, if they have these rough edges, they're gonna start to rub against each other, and they can kind of get caught in each other. And so this is the same thing in, human, as we deal with people and situations. We don't want to be in that kind of situation where we're creating conflict or making the situation worse, and getting or causing people people to get angry or to be offended or things like that. Okay, so that's all the rough edges. We need to wear those off. Wearing off the rough edges until it's all smooth. And then what happens is that when it's all smooth, it means that we are all in harmony. So there is no, there are no rough edges to cause any problems, okay, among people or in any situation. So that is really the goal of cultivation. I mean, the ultimate goal is to transcend this mortal world. But while we are still here, the goal is to become more well-rounded. I don't want to say perfect, because even the Buddha or any Buddha who's in this world is not entirely perfect. Okay, so we cannot achieve that type of perfection. And the perfection, because it's all relative again, and so there's no absolute perfection in this world. So everything is relative, and therefore we try to do our best to achieve some relative perfection or this well-roundedness, so that no matter what situation we're in, then we can always get along, right? We can always be in harmony, and in that way, we don't create karma. Right? Ultimately, that karma is going to come back and bite us, and we're going to end up reincarnating again. So, and if our goal is to transcend, then we don't want to do that. All right. Okay. Whoops. Okay. So, and then another way of looking at this is there's kind of the internal and external aspects of cultivation. And this, when we say performing merits, which we typically say is like the external side of things, of this cultivation, is to the goal of that is to pay off our karmic debts. Okay, so we all carry karmic debts from past lives, and well, not just past lives, but this current life, right? Unless we were born as a saint. And everything we do, we never created any karma in this life, then we can be sure that we also have some karmic debts from this life, right? I mean, if we weren't born vegan, then we definitely have debts. Okay, so yeah, So the merits, we do need those to pay off karmic debts. On the other side is the virtues, which you can say is internal. Although, the sixth patriarch, he kind of talked about these two as the merits being internal and the virtues external. But yeah, they're both one and the same, basically. I mean, they each have internal and external aspects. Okay, but we're not going to get into that. But so the virtues, the idea of the virtues then is we paying off our karmic debts with merits, but, we want to stop creating more karmic debts. Okay. If we are continuing to create more karmic debts and we're performing merits to pay off those debts, do we think that we can perform enough merits to offset all the karmic debts that we're creating? Right. So most likely not, actually. We can't keep up. Okay. So, eventually we go bankrupt, right? Which means, we reincarnate. So, basically, we have to, and that's why we need the virtues so that we don't create any more karmic debts. I use it this way, but basically like certain precepts. Okay, so we follow certain precepts: no killing, right? No stealing, no lust, no intoxicants, things like that, right? No lying. Then that helps us prevent to stop creating karma and karmic debts. Okay, so so we have to do both, right? So whichever one you say is internal or external, we can't just do one and forget about the other. Okay, so again, it's kind of like this holistic thing. So cultivation is both. It's not just one or the other, right? So we have to do everything. And, so cultivation, it's a broad umbrella that covers a lot of things. And we have to do pretty much, have to do all of them, okay? And then there are, of course, those principles or guidelines. And among those, we have precepts, which we've talked a lot about before. Those are the very specific, you can say that they're more specific specific rules or, commandments, like, for example, not killing. Those are, you can say, in one sense, they're very specific. In another sense, you can say that they're kind of broad too. But, and then you have other rules and regulations that are not in those specific precepts, which you would find in like a temple setting, for example. Within the temple, there are rules and regulations. Okay. So those are kind of a little bit separate from the precepts. And the idea, though, we need to internalize these, even the precepts and also the rules and regulations. Okay, so what I mean is that these precepts and rules and regulations, when we're getting started and we learn about these, we think that, well, it's external, right? Someone's telling us that these are the rules and these are the precepts. You have to follow these. Okay, it may have come from the Buddha or others, the saints, or patriarchs, but it's still from most people's point of view is that these are external. But ultimately, we need to internalize them. So, and to internalize it, we need to basically understand, okay, why they are. Now, some people, they can just accept it as it is and without even knowing why, and they can just maybe try to internalize it. But I think a lot of people, they might have questions, like, why have these precepts or why these rules and regulations? And so, for a lot of people, they want to kind of understand. They don't want to just accept it as is, and that's okay. But the reason why we internalize it is that then once it's internalized, then it's basically ours. I would say it's ours, meaning that, these are basically my precepts. These are my rules and regulations. So it's no one's telling me that I have to do these things. I do it because it, quote unquote, it's mine. Okay, so I mean, there's no mine or whoever's, but once it's inside, internalized, then we'll do it. We'll definitely follow them automatically. Okay, so then you can say it becomes unconditional. Now, obviously, these precepts they don't change. Okay, the 5 precepts that we typically talk about has been around since the time of Buddha. The rules and regulations are more recent. That within the temple. I'll talk a little bit about those a little bit later. The 15 rules and regulations. Those came about since the time of 18th Patriarch. And, internalizing is one of the key, I think one of the key is an important thing that we have to try to do. Maybe not just for these things, but, in general, all the principles that we learn. And so because once they are internalized, again, then it's, you don't depend on anything external. It's very important that because anything that's external is subject to conditions potentially. Okay. And, if it's coming from the outside, conditions can change, and that could affect us if we just rely on those things that are external. So ultimately, we want to rely on something that's internal, which will not change. Obviously, our Buddha nature, that doesn't change. Even our mind, our heart and mind, we can still have a changing heart and mind. We decide we want to do this today, and then tomorrow we don't. So our mind, that is, but we want to, when I say we internalize these, then it's like we're very firm. We have an understanding of it, and we very firmly will follow these. Okay, and so that in the long run, that will help us to cultivate to the end, right? Until for as long as it takes, right? And then finally, fulfilling vows. Okay, so this is again an important aspect of cultivation. Is we make vows to, and then we have to fulfill them. Okay, so but we've talked about these as well. So today we're kind of going to talk more, maybe kind of a broader view of this cultivation. Okay. All right. Oh, the other thing is, what we're cultivating. Okay, so there are also another 2 aspects, if you will, we're cultivating, of course, in this mortal life, right? In this life that we are in right now, this physical life, being as a human being, but at the same time, we're cultivating our immortal life. Okay, so you can say for the thereafter, or for the long term. Okay, so beyond this life. Okay, so those are the 2 aspects. You can say that the mortal life is the external aspect, and the immortal is the internal aspect as well. You can say that too. But yeah. So again, this whole idea of this internal, external, or whatever, this exists in a lot of things, and a lot of the the precepts or the rules and regulations, same thing. They can apply externally and also internally. Okay, so these are it's a very common thing in all whether it's in the sutras, things like that as well. Okay, the in terms of the meanings in them that you can find in them. Okay, so all right. So anyways, now the Noble Eightfold Path is very relevant here, because when we talk about, first of all, the first path, which is having the right view or understanding, right? So the Noble Eightfold Path is really, I mean, it is the middle, as Buddha says, it's the middle way, okay? So it's the way of Tao. Okay, so for us, you could say it is the way of Tao. It is the way to practice basically the mortal cultivation, the mortal self, to attain the Tao. Right now, the right view, one of the key things there is understanding the Four Noble Truths. In other words, it's like getting the big picture of what life is about, right? People tend to look at life and they see, well, it's just between birth and death. That's life, okay? And and they want to try to stay alive, okay? So that's kind of a very kind of like a basic instinct, I guess, of all living beings, is to want to be alive, to live rather than to die. And so they do everything they can to live. Okay, so now, of course, humans are one step above the animals in the sense that animals, they don't know about luxurious life. They just know how to survive. But humans go beyond that and say, oh, they seek pleasure. They seek, luxury, all that stuff. Okay. So that is kind of the unenlightened view of life, right? So we need to know. So in the Four Noble Truths, right, Buddha tells us that, well, this life is actually, it's not what we think it is. Okay, so it's dukkha, which is the first noble truth, which saying, it's basically suffering, or it's unsatisfactory, it's imperfect. Okay, just like what we said, it's, life is imperfect, and everything, all phenomena is imperfect. It's not lasting, not everlasting. So that's, you can say that's the bigger view. Okay, so we need to kind of get the bigger view, kind of get away. Most people, they're very, you can say they're very short. They have a short-sighted view of life, of everything really. And so we need to kind of correct our view, correct our vision, so that we have perfect, good vision. And so we need to look at the bigger view. See the big picture, all right? So this is what the big picture is. That life is, it's going to be, it's not perfect, okay? So there's going to be suffering. And secondly, that there is a cause for the suffering, okay, or this dukkha. And that cause is really, it's not like, things are random and I got dealt a bad, set of cards. It's all due to our own actions. So why is this whole universe, this whole cosmos, everything it's so fair. I mean, a lot of people say, life is unfair. But why is it's actually so fair? Because we are held accountable for our own actions. That's what makes it fair. And so, the only reason why we think it's unfair is because we don't see the causes, okay? Because the causes are planted in previous lives. All right, so, but anyway, so that's the second truth. And then the third truth is that, hey, there is a way to end this. We can end the suffering. Because if there's a beginning, if there's a cause, then we can also end it, right? So this is a truth, and that end of suffering is, you can say it's nirvana, okay? It's transcending this cycle of birth and death. And then the fourth truth is that the way to do that, there's a way, which is what Buddha prescribes as the Noble Eightfold Paths. Okay, so the key here is, having this right view, the proper view of life, of the world, of everything. Okay, that we have to take that big view, the look at the big picture. So once we understand that, that sets us in the right direction to achieve that third truth, which is nirvana. Okay. So Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So the next one is, the right intention or thoughts. Okay. So obviously we all, as humans, we have a consciousness. We think, okay, we use our brain, or our mind, and we think about things. So, but it's not just thoughts. Okay. Intentions are, they're like, you can say there are pre-thoughts. Okay. They're not really thoughts or ideas either. So, well, we have to express our true nature. So what is really our true nature? I mean, it's coming from, we talk about our Buddha nature, our true nature. Okay, so as opposed to our human nature, which can, we say it could be good, it could be bad, or good and evil. Okay, but the true nature, the Buddha nature, right? So, like kindness, compassion, benevolence, mercy, consideration, all these, you can say these are the virtues. Okay, not having any ill will or intention. Okay, so this is important because if we have any kind of if we don't express these virtues, or we have any kind of ill will or bad intentions, again, that will that falls into that, creating karma, creating that dukkha, the suffering again. Okay, so if we understood the first one, then we should understand the second one here, the right intention and thoughts. Okay, so it basically follows, right? And then speech, okay, that's the next step, which again is the same thing. This follows from the first two, and typically, speech comes after we have some thoughts, or sometimes, I don't know, some people talk without thinking, which could be a problem too. But again, we have to make sure that our speech is proper, is correct. We aren't lying. We don't abuse people with our language. Okay, or talk, say bad things about people, maybe that are not true. Okay, or divisive speech. Or having idle talk, which could be like gossip or even like flattery as well. Okay, so a lot of these things, these are all part of the, like the wholesome or unwholesome, the 10 wholesome or 10 unwholesome deeds. Okay, so obviously, speech is a very important aspect too. So not just the thoughts. Thoughts, even though, okay, so thoughts by themselves or intentions, even if they're not carried out, whether in speech or in action, can also create karma. So that's why, this is separate. This is internal, you can say. Speech, affects externally, affects other people. Actions also affect other people, but intentions and thoughts affect ourselves. Okay, so those are also important. Okay, so it's not just, even though I may have some bad thoughts towards someone, but I don't say it and I don't do it, but still that's not good. Okay, so we have to correct that, right? And then, okay, so then what follows next, of course, is the actions or conducts, and then this is also covered in the five precepts, right? The three of the five, no killing, no stealing, no lust, okay, or sexual misconduct. Okay, so our conduct should be proper, maintain that propriety, right? And then next would be our livelihood or occupation. Okay, so again, and then, so some of the things that like Buddha talks about is basically, you can say they're kind of like precepts, if you will. So he says, don't be involved in weapons or arms trades. Okay, basically anything that's you're creating for destruction or killing, or harming people or any living beings. Don't be involved in the animal trade, right? Whether it's for slaughter or whether it's slaughtering the animals themselves, or you're raising the animals and then selling them to someone else to slaughter. That's the same thing basically. And so you shouldn't be involved, or being a butcher, you're at the end of that chain where you're the one actually killing the animals and selling it, so that shouldn't be involved in those. Don't be involved in any kind of slavery type of trade or human trafficking, that kind of stuff. Don't be involved in any intoxicants or drugs, alcohol. Actually, liquor store, right? Selling liquor, that's not good. So that would be covered by this one here. And so what Buddha is saying is that, it shouldn't be in that kind of trade or occupation. And then don't be involved in poisons. Okay, so maybe that's not as common today. Maybe that used to be something that people did in the past. Okay. All right. Okay, so next, then you have the effort, right? Effort. So this is really being diligent in everything that we do. Okay. Trying to, and also more specifically, to eliminate and prevent things, unwholesome qualities, whether they are in ourselves or in others. So that means if we have a bad habit, we indulge in certain vices, we need to kind of stop that, get rid of those. Okay, and if we see that, see that in others, then we have to try to encourage them to stop doing those things as well. Okay, and then also on the other hand, though, we also want to promote or develop wholesome qualities, good qualities. Okay, so within ourselves and in others. Okay, so again, but the key here is that we really put in that effort to do these things. Okay, so without the effort, then nothing is going to happen, or the result is not going to be as good. Okay. Right, mindfulness and awareness. Yeah, this is also a very important aspect. We always have to be aware of our actions, speech, and thoughts. So, this is, the 8 are not like independent things, right? So this mindfulness, awareness, obviously applies to these previous ones as well. That we are doing, that we are always aware of our thoughts, intentions, speech, actions, conducts, etc. Okay, because we were not aware, then we might do things or say things or even think things that again create karma, ultimately creating suffering. Okay, so this is a very important aspect. We always have to keep that in mind. Right. Also know that our mind is actually, the human mind is impermanent. Okay, so that's the anicca. Because it's constantly changing. Okay, our feelings, desires, attachments, they cause suffering. Okay, or dukkha. Our body, the physical body, is very impure. Okay, and that phenomena is without a self-nature. Okay, so it's anatta. All right, so these are things that we have to keep in mind, because they will then help us in our cultivation. Okay, so if we realize that, well, this body is impure, then, I wouldn't, I won't indulge this body so much, okay, in certain pleasures or whatever, right? And then phenomena, everything is, there's no real self-nature to it. So all material things, everything it doesn't last anyways. Okay, so we shouldn't be obsessed with these things, but become too attached to them. Right? Okay, and then finally, the right concentration. Okay, so this is having a strong aspiration to cultivate and attain Buddhahood. Okay, so we need to. Obviously, everything we need to have concentration. So effort, you can say effort, mindfulness, and concentration. These are kind of related to each other. Today we live in a world with too many distractions, especially now, our with the internet and everything, our phones, smartphones, we constantly getting messages and whatnot, and we're constantly checking it out. So there's a lot of distraction. There's very little concentration. And to cultivate successfully, we do need to concentrate. Okay, so we have to put in vigorous effort. Okay, so this is actually I guess part of, you can say also part of the effort. And focus, right? Be focused on what we're doing, what we should be doing versus what we, kind of, you can say is kind of wasting our time. All right. Most of the things that we do are really basically wasting our time because they're not really helping us in the sense of achieving this goal of nirvana. Okay. And having, greater, so this concentration also and focus gives us also a deeper, you can say perception, ability to perceive the truth. Okay. So developing our divine wisdom. Okay. So actually, yeah, this Noble Eightfold Path, this, you can say this is like a recipe. I don't know. It's kind of a very general recipe, I guess, from Buddha that tells us, yeah, this is in cultivation. We have to be aware of all these things and try to follow these things and certain things that we don't do. Okay. Because when we do those things that we shouldn't do, then we definitely cannot succeed. All right. Okay. All right. So now in the Tao, we talk about, or you will hear a lot about these 6 words. Okay. These 6 words, 改毛病去脾气. Okay. So I say correct one's faults and eliminate one's temper. All right. Very simple. And these are not, okay, so these are, you can say that these are really implied as part of our cultivation. Okay, so these are never, these are not part of any precepts or things like that, but it's implied because we have to do these things. We have to correct our faults, eliminate our temper in order to really cultivate. Okay, so what are our faults? Okay, so faults, yeah, the faults is too specific here, but it includes our shortcomings. I don't mean shortcomings. I don't mean things like our, let's say we have certain disabilities or things like that where maybe we're born with or maybe happen later in our life that we physically unable to do. It's not talking about that. It's talking about we tend to have tendencies. Okay, so tendencies are, I would say, kind of like pre-habits. Okay, so they can become habits. Tendencies is that we tend to do things in a certain way or say things in a certain way or whatever. Those are tendencies. Okay, but they're not necessarily habits yet. But they can become habits if we're not careful, if we're not aware. Okay, so that's why awareness, right, mindfulness is very important. Now, tendencies perhaps are very similar to habits in the sense that maybe we aren't really as aware of them. Okay, a lot of I think most of us, maybe everyone, we have certain tendencies or habits, idiosyncrasies that we're just not aware of. Okay. For example, it's like, when I'm talking, I tend to, say right, use the word right, or maybe okay, or just say, these things in my speech, where I wasn't really that aware of it until I heard my own recording. And then I realized, wow, I do that a lot. But these are like habits. Okay. So, it's very hard to change a habit, already. And not knowing that we have the habit, obviously, then we won't be able to change them. So, these habits are very difficult. Why? Because it's also, and the tendencies actually, they can be inherited from or accumulated from previous lives. Okay, so that's why sometimes we have like some kind of a natural tendency to do things, and that we didn't learn those necessarily in this life, but they came from our previous lives where we maybe tended to do those things already. So, or maybe they were habits from before, and then there's still a tendency in this life. Habits, if like I said, if we're not careful with tendencies, they become habits. Habits, some habits could be conscious. Okay, conscious habits, the things that we created that become habits through conscious effort. But generally, I think they're mostly unconscious. So that's why this is kind of a little bit insidious in that we're not aware. Okay, so we may be through our habits, our idiosyncrasies, we might be offending people, we might be doing all sorts of things that are creating karma potentially that we don't realize, and that makes it scary. And so we need to be aware. And so when people point out these things to us, we should take heed. We should listen, and we should try to. We should then become more aware of these. Okay. Okay, and then so so habits. What are bad habits? Vices. It could be being lazy, for example. That's a bad habit, right? Being or people they smoke. Okay, so those are more kind of addictions, and you can say addictions are a type of habit, but it's more maybe some of them are chemically driven. Okay, but there could be like we have bad habits, and we should try to correct. We have to correct those. Now, some people say we should develop good habits. And good habits, okay, yeah, that's okay. It's like, okay, so we should get up early, and that's probably fine, okay, so, but in general, I would say, okay, yeah, I mean, in general, you could say, developing good habits is better than having any bad habits, but not having any habits at all may be even better. In other words, because a habit, once again, is something that's happening automatically, pretty much automatically and not consciously. Therefore, and they're not coming from our Buddha nature. It's not coming from the Buddha nature. Okay, so if it's coming from the Buddha nature, we don't need habits. All right, we just do it naturally. Okay, so the good habit is not necessarily something that happens, it's natural, right? So ultimately, I say that habits are more like, it's kind of like a certain type of attachment. It's an unconscious type of attachment to a certain way of whatever, speaking or doing things. And so any kind of attachment is not that good, even though we say, oh, it's a good habit. And that the good habit might work in most situations, but maybe in certain situations that habit may turn out to be not very appropriate. Okay, so that's why we should always try to be, I guess, spontaneous. But spontaneous coming from our Buddha nature, so it's not coming from any kind of going through any kind of bias through our mind, conscious mind's biases or prejudices or anything like that. Okay, all right. So and then so the other aspect is our temperament. All right. So now we tend to think of temper as being our anger, being angry, but it's actually a lot of things. Okay, so emotion, right? So we say anger, jealousy, envy. Okay, there's a lot of these things. Greed, I guess these are. I guess you can say I don't know. Greed is really emotion, but so this is not just getting rid of our a bad temper or anger. Okay, so although typically that's what we talk about the most, but it's a lot of other things. It's also our attitude. Okay, so these things also, our temperament, these are affected by what we say the chi. Okay, so when we're born in this world, right, we are affected by the circumstances of our birth. Okay, which includes time, place, and all sorts of things. Okay, and that affects this chi. This chi within us. Okay, so that's you can say our temperament. All right, so but our attitude. So stubbornness. Yeah, that's something maybe we don't think about, but it's that's when we're saying get rid of our temper. We have to. That's included. Okay, so we shouldn't be stubborn. All right, we have to get rid of that. When we easily take offense or we take things personally. Right, that's also an attitude you can say. But that's also part of this temperament that we should be aware of. We get annoyed, okay? We are impatient, right? Impatience is also part of our temperament, and we try to eliminate that. We have to be more patient. We are arrogant, pride, okay? Again, that's also an attitude that we have to get rid of. And in general, maybe it's delusion. As well. So these are all part of our temperament that we need to get rid of. So it's not just talking about anger, right? So that's very important to know. Now, so once again, this is kind of like a very general or basic, as parts of a cultivation that's not necessarily written down anywhere in the specific precepts or rules, but it's a given. I mean, that if we don't do these things, it's going to be hard to cultivate successfully in all the other ways. Okay. All right. So, how do we do this then? Because some people, they say, oh, this is just like a slogan, right? We always toss around these 6 words as a slogan, but most people but we don't know how to do it. But actually, although it's kind of true that it doesn't give you the method, okay, it doesn't say how you should do this, but it really doesn't take a rocket scientist to really figure it out, right? Of course, everyone is different, but there are some basic principles or guidelines that we must follow to achieve the result. And so I talk about we have to self-reflect, okay, to introspect, to look within, right, to be mindful, to be aware again, okay, so part of the Eightfold Path, because there's this chain of events here, from thoughts that turn into actions, turn into habits, which define our character and our destiny. So make sure that we get rid of these habits, and that we don't create, any more bad habits. So, because once we do that, then that kind of fixes us in a certain way that may not be good, appropriate, and may not, allow us to succeed in cultivating, right, or achieving the ultimate goal. We have to admit to our faults. So again, this talks about our attitude, right? A lot of people, they get defensive, or maybe they because of that arrogant attitude that they think that, they can do no wrong, and they won't accept criticism from others or even advice. So those are attitude. In order for us to correct things, then we have to get rid of that right away, because that just prevents us from even admitting to our faults. So that's very important. All right. So we have to be really be receptive to when people, obviously, when we are giving criticism, we should do it in a nice way, and not be too direct. But when we're on the receiving end, again, we should not take offense either, because maybe, the person who's telling us is trying to help us. Okay, so because again, perhaps once again we don't realize what we're doing or what we're saying. It needs correcting. Okay, or maybe we're too arrogant to see it. Okay, so again, that's one of the keys that we have to do is to get rid of that. To correct our attitude first in order to be able to admit to our faults. Okay, now, okay, so most of our time, right, is spent reflecting. I would say reflecting outward. Okay, so basically our attention and effort is directed to the outside, to the world around us, to the people around us. So this is very one-sided, unbalanced, right? So we definitely need to spend at least as much time reflecting inward, okay? So that's the self-reflection, introspection aspect. And we can do this, 24/7, any time. I mean, it doesn't have to be, at the end of the day, after a long day, I reflect on myself. Why don't we do it 24/7, all the time, even while we're doing things? That's really, that's what a Buddha is always in this mode. Okay. Now for us, maybe, we're starting, we can't do both at the same time. We have to kind of spend, time, quietly by ourselves to self-reflect, but, actually self-reflection should happen all the time, not just when we're sitting quietly. Okay. Now, so we want to achieve this, at least have this balance, and okay, so then we also repent. Okay, so once we admit to the faults, we can repent and say that we're not going to do it again. Okay, so that we're definitely we're going to correct ourselves. It's we should not be. It should not be like, you go to confession every week and you're confessing the same sins or whatever. Then that's meaningless. Okay, so that's not real repentance. Repentance is when we realize we made a mistake, or that we're doing something or saying something that's not the right way. That will correct ourselves, and the next time it won't happen again. Okay, so. Every day when we have a temple, you do the morning and evening vows. It includes a little repentance thing in there, and so again, it's reminding us every day that we should that we probably we're not perfect. We're doing things or saying things that maybe could have been maybe not entirely wrong, but could have been better, and so there's always something to repent, right? But we have to be aware. We have to know. We have to realize we're doing something that we have to correct. Okay, so that's kind of the first step. The other thing is too, sometimes maybe we are accused of something that perhaps we didn't do, or it's some kind of false accusation or something like that, or false claim. So how do you deal with that? I mean, we don't admitting to faults, that's very difficult, and that's in that case is to accept the accusation or the claim against us when let's say we didn't do it, or we didn't do it in that way that they're saying. That is, I think most people, or almost everyone, will have very much difficulty to accept that, as opposed to be really defensive and start arguing back. But we have to learn to try to do that. You can say, because that is, it's really a sign of whether we still have the ego, right? If we still have the ego, then we will argue back, say, no, I didn't. That's a falsehood. But if we can just accept it, oh, okay, I'm sorry, that shows that we're very humble, okay, that we don't have that ego. Okay, so and not only that can resolve potential or not create conflict. Okay, so that right away that creates harmony. It's harmonious. Okay, so if we start arguing back, then there's no harmony there, and it can escalate into something greater conflict. So you could say what the Buddhas, saints, sages, they all teach us to do that, right? Turn the other cheek. That's the idea. Okay, so all right, be grateful as well. So besides the repenting, all right, so we also have to be grateful again to whoever is telling us that, pointing out our faults or whatever. We should be grateful. So again, in terms of if no one is pointing things out to us, so like we have karma, then yeah, we also should be, this also applies. What I'm saying is that this is not just in terms of what I'm talking about is just when people point things out to us, but when we are in a situation where we're dealing with our own karma, it's the same thing. Okay, we should repent. Yeah, the reason why we have this karma is, well, we did something in previous life that caused this. So we should repent and be. And I guess there is someone behind that karma. So the karmic debt collector, the creditor or whatever, the spirit, the person in previous life that we harmed or something. Okay, so. So we should always be grateful also to whoever. So even like in the face of we having to experience some bad karma, we should be grateful again to be able to accept that karma, to say that yes, I'm willing to pay it back, and I am grateful that I have this opportunity to pay back this karma. So that could be hard to do too, but that's something that we have to learn as well. And then ultimately also having this faith and sincerity, right? So having a willpower, we need to have a willpower, the resolve, the perseverance to carry this out, to execute, to implement, right? To practice this. Without the faith and sincerity, it's hard to, especially in the face of a lot of hardships, things like that, we tend to, might want to give up. And so having the faith and sincerity is very important for us to be able to carry on and for as long as it's necessary, basically to the end. And so having willpower, that's important, especially, when we're dealing with our own faults and temperament, it's like it is hard to correct or change our habits or even get rid of our temper, but we have to have that will. And that will be that internal force that keeps us going and in that direction. Okay, so don't give up. We can't give up. I mean, if we give up, then how can we successfully cultivate and achieve the goal of nirvana? Okay. All right. Okay. So let's see here. Right. Oh. Okay. All right. So yeah. So briefly, I also want to touch on these 15 rules and regulations. So I don't think we've talked about these before, but so the first one says revere the Buddhas. I mean that's okay. Again, this is there's external, internal. So on the surface, yeah, we respect the Buddhas, but internally we also have that Buddha nature. So that's the Buddha essence within us too. And so we have to realize that and revere that within us. The second one, respect seniors and mentor the novices. Okay, again, that's kind of on the surface meaning is talking about this. Yes, so there are always, we always find ourselves in, you can say, like, wearing many hats, right? Just like in life, we each wear different hats. We have different duties, responsibilities, different relationships, things like different status in different places. Okay, so in the temple, it's the same thing. There are always those who come before us, okay, and those who come after us. And we don't want to view it as saying, oh, because I come before them, then, so they have to kind of listen to me. No, it's not like that. I mean, we're all equals. But there is kind of there's a sense of order, okay? But we obviously we want to respect those who, we should respect those who come before us, and especially the long timers, well, those who've been in cultivating for a long time, okay? And then, for the newer people, then we are also basically their seniors, okay? So we are the juniors or the novices of the seniors, and then we are also the seniors of the newer people, the novices that come after us. So we kind of wear both hats. So we have to know that. But this is also talking about really, we have to, but we actually have to respect everyone. Okay, so whether they're senior or novice. And then and always, when we are dealing with newer people or anyone, we should be always kind and helpful and all that. All right, try to guide them. All right. Okay, the next one says be restrained, dignified, centered, principled. Okay, so again, there's certain things that now, like in the temple. Okay, so we don't necessarily have specific or we don't have very strict rules like like a dress code maybe or things like that. I mean, if we are a staff member, then of course we wear the uniform, but in general there's no specific thing. I mean, we might say have guidelines, say no flowery kind of or too colorful or wild looking, clothing, it should be more plain. Okay, so plain colors, things like that. But also, not just that, but in our appearance, okay, our appearance should be dignified and because so there's one thing like, today, because, well, in this, I guess in modern society, there's more freedom, right? Freedom of expression. People can look any way, have any kind of appearance that they want. But when we're in the temple, that kind of stuff doesn't fit in. Okay, so in the temple, you might say, then we have to conform to be a certain way. But we have to kind of appear dignified and all that. So if a male has, very long hair and then, maybe they tie in a ponytail or something, so then that doesn't really look, is this a guy or a male or female? Okay. So, today I know in society it's, people, maybe they don't care about this. They say, hey, freedom of expression, that's good. But, then there's like no distinction anymore between male, female. Okay, so in the Tao cultivation, there is a distinction, and it has to be somewhat clear. Okay, so especially in the temple, it can't be just very random. Okay, all right. Okay, so and the next one says like follow the rules and observe the boundaries. Again, of course, whatever the rules are, we follow those. And then any kind of boundaries, again, between like male, female, for example, that type of boundary, that we should observe those, as well. Accept responsibility, right? So sometimes we are given a task to perform or whatever, then we should carry it out. All right. Let's see. Emphasize the divine over the mundane. Okay. So this is actually one of the vows, the first vow in the Dharma class. Okay, if you completed the Dharma class, you would have taken this. It includes this. Okay, so basically to realize that yes, life is, you want to seek this more spiritual path, I guess, or this path towards enlightenment, then we have to emphasize more on the divine or the holy or the spiritual. The spiritual is kind of like maybe too broad, but anyways, this path as opposed to the mundane or the material path of what 99 more than 99% of the population follows. Okay, so we're kind of going against the stream, going against the flow, okay, of normal society for the most part, as a cultivator. Okay, so we want to be courteous and kind. Okay, so obviously when we're treating everyone within the temple, not just in the temple, but everywhere, we should be courteous and kind, especially new people coming in, of course, having that smiling face and welcoming, very warm, then they'll feel welcome and they'll feel like it's a good place to be, okay, as opposed to if we're all very cold, giving them the cold shoulder, then, even though they might be interested in cultivating, they wouldn't want to be here, okay, so, and then this next one, do not discard the holy teachings, okay, so this is, this actually has many different aspects, but this is the basic meaning is that, yeah, the teachings from, whether it's, the Buddhas, the saints, sages, the sutras, scriptures, all that, we should, don't take it too lightly, okay? Don't take it lightly and think that, oh, no, this doesn't apply to me, and then you just toss it aside. We really should, if, like, the Buddhas, nowadays, we don't have as much of a chance for that, but in the past, when there's channeling, and the Buddhas give us instructions or give us a guidance, we should really take it to heart and really keep it in mind, as opposed to, this is something that's, again, it's that attitude thing. It's like, does this really apply to me? This is not really, the Buddha's wrong. That's the wrong attitude. Okay, so whatever the Buddhists tell us is like, we should really take it to heart and have some kind of advice or guidance that we should really follow through and to the best of our abilities, right? Do not be attached to appearances and forms. Okay, so this is again a very important thing. We got too stuck on this. The temple, it has to be big, it has to be so many people in here, and so this place looks kind of empty, so I'm going to go to a place that has lots of people. That's just one aspect. Okay, so these forms, but don't be attached to the forms, or don't be attached to like the channeling the Buddhas and saints. And it's like, even though they're, so what they're talking about is true, maybe is the truth, but don't become attached to that. Okay, so one day also, we're not going to have that opportunity to get that kind of direct teaching from the Buddhas and saints either. So and if that happens, and we say, I come to the temple just to see that, then if they don't come anymore, then you're not going to come to the temple. So it's not. We don't be attached to that type of form. Keep our procedures transparent and proper. Okay, so everything we do has to be, of course, proper. You can say maybe by the book, or make sure it's very clear. We're not doing anything improper. Okay. Report when departing and returning. So this, maybe this doesn't really apply too much to like new, or your average Dao Kin person who received the Dao, but for like staff members, temple hosts, lecturers, etc., even transmitting masters, right? They should, if they're going somewhere, they're going to be away for a little bit, then they should report to the senior, whoever's above, whoever is responsible, and then when they return, same thing, report back, or this all, I guess you can also mention that usually if if you're being sent out to propagate the Tao or whatever, and and when you come back, you know, report on what happened. Okay. Do not disrupt the system is basically there's a system. Okay, so the system, one of the system is the system of lineages. Okay, so like we talk about the golden thread, we have to maintain that so we don't jump around from temple to temple, from different units of under, you know, whether it's under the same branch of the Tao lineage, but maybe a different unit, different temple. We shouldn't be jumping around. And also, I guess you can say adhering to whatever system that we have of, let's say, even like the rules and regulations within the temple. Okay, we should adhere to those. And then treasure, public property. Okay, so this obviously the temple is, we talk about temple as being public. Okay, so it is for, because it is for the sentient beings, for all sentient beings. All right. So, and then, but of course, the things that are within the temple, we have to treat as, you know, they're not ours. Okay. They're not our, even though they're for sentient beings, but they're not for us specifically, for each individual person specifically. And so we can't, you know, use these things or take these things for ourselves to use. All right, and so we have to treasure that. But also, this actually also applies to the people within the temple. Okay, so again, especially like new people, members in the temple, we have to treat them well. Okay, so don't, yeah, I mean, so again, that kind of goes back to one of the previous ones. And then so be lively and adaptable. We have to. You know, so all these like rules and regulations, whatnot, they can be adaptable. I mean, we don't break the rules. We shouldn't break any of these rules, but maybe they can be adapted to different situations. And so, you know, in other words, the implementation could be different. All right. Depending on the situation. Okay. So, and also when we are, let's say we're trying to deal with people, or we're leading. Okay, we are leading people to do things or whatever, that we should be a little bit more lively. Okay, and then finally, be cautious in words and actions. Okay, so this is a very important one, to make sure that we don't say things that may offend people. Or, you know, maybe unknowingly too, you know, we don't realize. And so it's important to understand, you know, kind of know people's backgrounds so that we don't say something that might be offensive to someone, or they might misinterpret it. So we have to be careful how we say things. And also, of course, our actions, the same thing. All right. So these are kind of like 15, these are, you know, obviously these are our set 15 rules and regulations in the temple. Now, I also want to mention these two. Respect the teachers in the Tao, you know, that's kind of a more direct translation of this, 尊师重道, and then 承上启下, follow I used the word follow protocol. Some said, well, whatever. But there's these two together. Okay, you hear this a lot too in the temple. But again, these are not part of, you notice you didn't see these two as part of the 15 rules and regulations, and they aren't part of any precepts. Again, these are kind of, these two, you can say, are, I would say that they're like a generalization, and they encompass the 15 rules and regulations. Okay, so basically the 15 rules and regulations are kind of more specific aspects of these two. Right. So and also, okay, well, I don't have listed here, but another one, you know, is like Sanqing Sizhen. Okay, so there's the 3 distinctions and the 4 proper conducts. Okay, so, but again, these are kind of, if you look at the 15, and then if you look at what these talk about, it basically covers, you know, those 15 kind of fall into these basic these concepts, I guess. What's this first one? So respecting not just, the teachers, holy teachers, Buddhas, saints, etc., and the Tao, of course, but also their mandate, right? They have the heavenly mandate. That's very precious, right? Without that mandate, we can't receive the Tao. Okay, so, and then also respect their virtues, okay? Their teachings, of course, etc. Okay, so we also want to understand, so specifically when we're talking about like our holy teacher, or you can say maybe any Buddhas or patriarchs or predecessors, things like that. But especially our holy teacher's patriarch, his kind of heart and why he's actually taken on this mission to save all sentient beings. Okay, so and to follow their example, right? To continue their mission, right? So as followers, as disciples of the holy teacher, then we should try to carry out, because the holy teacher, he's not here anymore, right? So our 18th patriarch, he had returned to heaven already. So it also depends on us to carry out the mission, right? So we have to continue that mission. To help others on the path of Tao without any selfish motive or benefit. Okay, so we need to also anytime we encounter others, and also even like so in the case, for example, like today we have two different units of the different temples in the same class here. We are sharing so. Because this is the the affinity or the circumstances we're doing this, but we should be willing to help each other out without any kind of selfish motive, saying, oh yeah, so now you joined our class, so now you gotta come join our temple. It's not like that. Okay, so that would be selfish. So it's just there's no strings attached. All right. The second part, follow the protocol. Yeah, there's protocols, like in society, right? You have certain protocols, or you might say that's like a procedure as well. But for example, if you want to meet, like the president, or if you want to meet maybe the CEO of a company, right? You don't just walk into the office and just plop yourself down on the couch and say, hey, what's up? All right. So there's certain protocol you have to follow. Again, within the temple, there's also a protocol, and we have to follow that. If we don't follow that, then it just becomes a free for all. People do whatever they want, and it becomes messy. Especially, like we have a situation. We sometimes see this situation where from another temple, someone comes over and they say, oh, they want to come over here and join our temple. Well, there's a certain protocol that you have to follow to do that. And basically because the other temple, they also have transmitting masters. And so they have to report to their transmitting masters, and their transmitting master has to agree and basically contact our transmitting master on this side. And if both sides agree, then, it can be done. Otherwise, they can't just come over here by themselves. All right. So that's one of the part of this protocol. And also, to carry out instructions from the seniors. So, and also to report to the seniors. So you can see here already that's part of within the 15 rules and regulations are in here. The guide and nurture novices, all right. So that's also there, and then to basically in general to harmonize with everyone, or those above and those below. But generally in general is to harmonize with all people, with everyone. All right. Okay. So let's see. Oh, okay. So, and then there are these other three things here. It says, don't leave the temple or the Tao community. Okay. Now the temple, where is this temple? This temple, obviously, when we're talking about the physical, this external temple, I mean, the Buddhas always encourage, and, the seniors, they all encourage us to come back to the temple. Why? Because we can learn in the temple, we can cultivate, learn to cultivate, and we can practice. We can do some type of practice within the temple. Perform merits, things like that. But this is not just talking about this temple, physical temple. It's also the internal temple within us. The temple within us is everywhere that we are. Okay, so the temple is everywhere we are. As long as we are conducting Tao affairs, as long as we are cultivating, then we are following our temple that's within us. And so everywhere that we go is the temple. Okay, so we don't leave the temple. So in other words, what that is also saying is that we should not stop cultivating. We should not stop, stop, conducting Tao affairs, things like that. So we should always be doing that. All right. Do not depart from the sutras. Basically, you can say the teachings, right, from the Buddhas and saints. That's the external side. The internal, you can say, also be inspired by the spirit of the Buddhas and saints. I mean, spirit, their spirit of cultivation, their spirit of sacrifice, their spirit of everything. Okay, so we should be inspired by them to follow also their path, to learn from them, and to basically do and try to follow their way. Okay, so as best we can. All right. So it's not just talking about the sutras there. Okay. Let's see. Okay. The teachings, of course, they can inspire our wisdom and give us answers to clear up our uncertainties, doubts, or delusions that we may have. Okay, so that's why it's good to try to read. Obviously, well, in English, we have we have a more limited amount of sutras, but actually all sutras all talk about the same thing, but from different ways. And so if we can understand one sutra, that's good enough, really, then we can understand all. Okay, so the key is really if we can understand it. So, but even if we don't understand, the more we read it, the more we learn, other people will try to explain it. That will help us. And it's not just, listening to once. We may have to listen to many, many times. Okay. All right. But we don't want to be attached to the words too much either. Okay. So, the words themselves, like today in religions, sometimes, they take things too literally. Okay. Because what happened is they've lost the true essence, the meaning, and they're looking at it just at face value, and that's already deviating from the truth. Okay, so we have to be careful about that. Okay, and then also don't leave the seniors, or you could say the virtuous ones or the worthy ones. Okay, so now the seniors are not really. According, what the holy teacher is saying is not really based. It's not the ones based on their title or seniority or any kind of other external criteria. Basically, it's talking about the true worthies. Okay, so actually, Chen really means worthies. Okay, so or virtuous ones. So those are the people with virtue, right? Who do things to benefit sentient beings, who are the role models of moral excellence. Right, who have gained, and they, as a result, they have the respect of others, and others will follow them. Okay, so that's very natural. Okay, so that's what. So if we encounter people like that, then we should follow. All right, we should follow them, and we should learn from them and follow their example. Okay, so but it has nothing to do with the title that they have or what position that they have. Right. Okay. Now. Yeah, so we should always try to learn the good qualities from others, and remind us ourselves not to acquire any of the bad qualities. I mean, because, we'll encounter all sorts of people. Actually, we can learn from everyone, whether they're virtuous or not. For the ones who are not virtuous, we may not find that many good qualities in them. And we might see some bad qualities, let's say. And then so we should also know to not remind ourselves to, not acquire those bad qualities either. Okay. Okay, so don't assume that, just because someone is a transmitter or a lecturer or a temple host that, they're perfect and I have to, don't blindly follow, in other words. Okay, so we have to use our wisdom. Wisdom is, one of the keys as well in our cultivation, hopefully that we develop our wisdom more. All right. And, right, it also doesn't mean that we should physically be close to these people, these worthies, but rather to more follow their spirit, right? The example to become worthies ourselves. Okay, so that's kind of more the meaning there. Okay. All right, so finally, cultivation, it's built on a foundation of these principles and guidelines. Okay, so now you might say that these principles, guidelines are absolute or unconditional because these principles, they don't really change. And also that it's really about refinement of our character, becoming that well-rounded person, so that we don't create karma, right? That we're always in harmony with others, with everything. And, we have to do introspection and make sure that we have to change our attitude, for the most part. I mean, there's certain things in our attitude, we have certain attitudes that we have to get rid of. Okay. So even though you can say that these may be absolute, I mean, what you've seen so far is pretty generic, or general versus some of the precepts, which are a little bit more specific. But so you can say that, but when we practice, right, we do to the best of our ability. So there's not like necessarily one standard or one, that everyone has to achieve it to a certain standard. We do to what we can do, okay, to our what our ability allows us to do. And so this is then the practice becomes relative, or it's conditional, or it's, I say it's appropriate. We do what is appropriate for ourselves. Okay, so everyone is different. Again, everyone's situation, everyone's karma, everyone's affinity, everything is different, a little bit different. It's kind of unique, and so although we are all cultivating the same principles, following the same principles and guidelines and precepts, but in the end, what our achievement is based on, again, is whether we put in that sincere effort and do things to the best of our ability. Okay, it's not necessarily that you have to achieve that certain level. From a human point of view, we like to compare. We have to say that, but it's not. That's not the way it is. Okay, so all right. So I'm sorry, went over time here. If I had said anything wrong, I ask the Buddhas and saints for forgiveness, and also transmitting masters and lecturers for their corrections. Thank you.